Solutions 2nd edition Upper Intermediate by Tim Faller and Paul A. Davis. Published and copyright Oxford University Press 2013. cd1. Unit 1. Lesson 1A. Exercises 6 and 7. Speaker 1.
I definitely respect people who don't need to be told what to do, who work things out for themselves and then just get on and do it. I think being self-motivated is a great quality. I mean, it's really useful in life, especially at school or at work. It means you're in control of your life. I hope I've got it too, a little bit. But I need to improve. It's definitely the best one to have.
Speaker 2.
What you really want from somebody you spend a lot of time with is somebody who cares about you, who wants to do the right thing, even if they don't always get it right. So for me, the most important quality is to be well-meaning. You can't expect anyone to be perfect. We all have our faults, don't we? But basically, they have to be a nice person. And if that's what they're really like inside, then I can forgive a few other faults. Those aren't important.
Speaker 3.
It's fine to have strong opinions of your own, but you need to listen to other people too and be a bit, open to things. Some people don't even listen to what other people have got to say. It's like, I'm right, this is how it is, and why should I listen to anyone else's point of view? But that's really negative, and I just don't know why anybody wants to be so narrow-minded. It makes me angry sometimes.
Speaker 4.
There are a few things about myself that I wish I could change. Like, I wish I didn't get angry so easily. I'm so quick-tempered. It's not something I want to do, or mean to do. It just happens. I mean, I don't get angry for no reason, of course. There's always something that sparks it off. Like when somebody pushes in front of me in the queue for the bus. I mean, how dare they? Who do they think they are? Ugh! That makes me really angry. But I wish it didn't.
Speaker 5.
I'm terrible if people say things about me, even if they don't really mean to be rude. I get upset very easily. It's not their fault, really. It's mine. I take everything so personally. I'm just not very thick-skinned. I definitely think it would be better if I could ignore criticisms or unkind comments and just think, okay, that's interesting, that's your opinion, but it isn't going to upset me. That's how I'd really want to react, yes.
Speaker 6.
I think lots of different personality qualities might be important, but basically, you have to really care about money. If you're really mean and never spend the money you get, you'll probably end up with lots of it. Sometimes you hear people say things like, "That guy's got so much money. Why is he so penny pinching? Why doesn't he buy somebody a drink every now and then?" Well, that's why he's got so much money, because he's careful with it. Most of my friends are really generous with their money, but they've never got much.
Lesson 1C. Exercises 2 and 3.
Most novelists are hungry for publicity. However, a minority of authors have appeared to hate the attention which their success has brought. Among these are two of the best-known American novelists of the 20th century, J.D. Salinger and Harper Lee. Jerome David Salinger, known as J.D. Salinger, was born in New York in 1919. He grew up in a Jewish family and, at the age of 13, went to a private school in Manhattan. Overall, his education was not a success. He was asked to leave school after a series of poor grades, and he dropped out of New York University after studying there for less than a year. Salinger's passion was writing, and in the 1940s, during and after World War II, Salinger sent many stories and poems to the magazine The New Yorker. They rejected them all. But then his luck changed, and in 1951 Salinger published his first novel, The Catcher in the Rye. It was an immediate success, particularly among younger readers who, for the first time, had an honest portrayal of the stress and confusion of adolescence. Because of its honesty, the novel was controversial. The Catcher in the Rye is not only on the list of books that are most often taught in American schools, but also on the list of books that are most often banned. The success of The Catcher in the Rye made Salinger famous, but he did not react well to fame. He moved from New York to a remote house in the country, and gradually became more and more reclusive. He experimented with various different religions, converting first to Buddhism, then to Hinduism, and later to a form of Christianity called Christian Science. Eventually, he abandoned them all. From 1965 until his death in 2010, Salinger published nothing, and for the last 30 years of his life refused all requests for an interview. Few people even saw or spoke to him. In a strange way, Salinger's single-minded determination to stay out of the public eye made him even more famous. He was famous for not liking fame. The same can be said of another great writer from the 20th century, Harper Lee. She was born in Alabama in 1926, worked hard at school, and went on to university, where she got a degree in English literature. Like Salinger, Lee had a passion for writing fiction, but did not achieve immediate success. In 1949, at the age of 23, she moved to New York to become a writer. But 10 years later, she was still struggling and unknown. Fortunately for her, a friend of hers, who was a successful songwriter, gave her an amazing Christmas present. A whole year's salary in one go. With the money was a note which read, "You have 1 year off from your job to write whatever you please. Merry Christmas." Harper Lee left her job and wrote her first novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. It was an immediate success, winning the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1961 and selling millions of copies. After the success of To Kill a Mockingbird, the literary world was waiting for Harper Lee's next publication. It never came. Although she worked for a while on a second novel, she never finished it. On the rare occasions when she agreed to appear in public, she always refused to make a speech. Both novels, The Catcher in the Rye and To Kill a Mockingbird, were published more than half a century ago, but both continue to sell hundreds of thousands of copies every year. Perhaps it is surprising that the authors of two such popular books about the human condition were so keen to avoid contact with their fellow humans.
Lesson 1C, Exercise 5.
"Put my bag in the front bedroom, Calpurnier," was the first thing Aunt Alexandra said. "Jean-Louise, stop scratching your head," was the second thing she said. Calpurnier picked up Aunt's heavy suitcase and opened the door. "I'll take it," said Jem, and took it. I heard the suitcase hit the bedroom floor with a thump. The sound had a dull permanence about it. "Have you come for a visit, Auntie?" I asked. Aunt Alexandra's visits from the landing were rare, and she traveled in state. She owned a bright green square Buick and a black chauffeur, both kept in an unhealthy state of tidiness, but today they were nowhere to be seen. "Didn't your father tell you?" she asked. Jem and I shook our heads. "Probably he forgot. He's not in yet, is he?" "No, he doesn't usually get back till late afternoon," said Jem. "Well, your father and I decided it was time I came to stay with you for a while." For a while in Maycomb meant anything from 3 days to 30 years. Jem and I exchanged glances. "Jem's growing up now, and you are too," she said to me. We decided that it would be best for you to have some feminine influence. It won't be many years, Jean Louise, before you become interested in clothes and boys. I could have made several answers to this. Cal's a girl. It would be many years before I would be interested in boys. I would never be interested in clothes. But I kept quiet.
Lesson 1D, Exercise 2.
High maths abilities, bad school lives. Teachers first noticed Cameron Thompson's talent for numbers when he was 4 years old and at preschool. Throughout primary school, Cameron Thompson's best subject was maths. Then, when he was 11, he took a maths test prior to entering secondary school. The test was out of 140. Cameron scored 141. I broke the system, he recalls. Since then, he has continued to progress quickly. He passed 2 GCSEs, maths and further maths, at the age of 11, and then got the highest grade in his maths A-level before the end of that same academic year. He is now 14 years old and studying for a degree in maths, a remarkable achievement bearing in mind his age. But his academic achievements have not always been matched by social success. I have the social ability of a talking potato, he admits. In other words, he feels more at ease with numbers than among other teenagers. Most people my age do despise me. I've been like this for years. Communication is not one of Cameron's strong points, and, aside from the problems this causes socially, it is now beginning to affect his marks in mathematics. This is because, at undergraduate level, he is expected to give reasons for his answers alongside the answers themselves. Cameron's difficulty is that he often doesn't know how he has arrived at the answers, even though the answers are usually correct. Cameron and his family have recently moved house, and Cameron is due to start at a new school. He regards it as a chance to make a fresh start and make some friends. But his mother, Alison, has a few worries concerning his lack of social skills. While she describes Cameron as very sensitive, she also acknowledges that he is socially naive and often oblivious to signals from other people. The new school specialises in dealing with students who, like Cameron, excel academically but find it difficult to relate to other students. And indeed, on his first day, Cameron did make a new friend, a boy called Tim, mainly owing to a shared dislike of Justin Bieber's music. Recently, a maths professor from Cambridge University has been looking at Cameron's work. His advice to Cameron is perhaps surprising. Professor Imre Leader thinks Cameron should slow down, stop taking maths exams, and wait until he is 18 before doing a degree. There's quite an important distinction, he explains, between taking lots of exams as fast as you can and relaxing and enjoying the level that you are at, what we call enrichment. Professor Leader believes Cameron will do better in the long run if he stops trying to progress so quickly. And although Cameron does want to finish his current degree, he isn't making any academic plans beyond that. He goes to a weekly karate class after school, and recently he went to a computer games convention with some friends from karate. Since turning 14, Cameron's feelings towards girls have changed. As he puts it, I started to like them instead of being disgusted by them. He's even been on a first date, without his parents. And in general, he feels less isolated and unusual than he did before. There are other people like me. High maths abilities, bad school lives. I am not alone. Spooky.
Lesson 1F, Exercises 3 and 4.
This photo shows a boy and a girl. They might be 18 or 19 years old, or a bit older. I'd say they're punks. He's got long, spiky black hair, and some of it's red, actually. It's dyed, of course. He's wearing a black and white t-shirt and a black leather jacket. He's got a piercing in his nose. He's wearing an earring. The girl has got a leather jacket too. I can't quite see what she's wearing on her legs. Perhaps she's got black tights and long socks up to her knees. She's wearing makeup, dark lipstick and probably some eyeliner. They look as if they're in a photographer's studio. I can't see any background behind them. They're both sitting down. The boy has got his arm around the girl's shoulder, and they're smiling slightly.
Lesson 1F, Exercises 7 and 8. Do you think the boy in the photo cares about his appearance? Why do you think so?
Yes, I do. I mean, look at his hair. It must take a long time to get it like that. It's amazing. And the clothes are quite unusual compared to, say, jeans and a sweatshirt. So I reckon he spent quite a lot of time thinking about his outfit.
Good, thank you. Now tell me, how much can you tell about a teenager's personality just from looking at their appearance?
It depends. Sometimes you can't tell very much if the teenager is wearing really normal clothes. But if they're dressed like a goth, for example, then you can make some assumptions about their personality. By and large, goths tend to be fairly quiet, and they aren't aggressive at all. In my experience, they're quite creative.
OK, thanks. Now, one more question. Get ready for your exam 1. Exercise 2. Speaker 1.
Do you find it stressful walking around at night time? If you were attacked or mugged, what would you do? How can a smaller, weaker person defend themselves against a taller, stronger assailant? Which parts of your body are the most vulnerable? How fast can you move? If you don't know the answers to these questions, join our 10-week course on self-defense for students. You will learn basic karate and practice useful techniques with a qualified instructor.
Speaker 2.
Everyone thinks they know about karate because they see its fighting techniques showcased in Hollywood films. But would you like to learn about it beyond the basic moves? Understanding the original philosophy and principles behind this most ancient of martial arts can be a deeply spiritual experience. The mind is trained alongside the body. Both become stronger and begin to work as one powerful unit. It's a form of meditation and self-defense combined. Try a free class today.
Speaker 3.
Our modern-day lives are getting increasingly stressful. We work hard and expect a lot from ourselves, so it's no wonder that even young people are feeling the pressure. We invite you to look at the world differently for an hour a week. During that hour, we guarantee your mind and body will become stronger and your powers of concentration will increase. Meditation. You may not have considered it before, but why not give it a try? Join up today.
Speaker 4.
Look at the world differently. Standing on the water with the wind in your hair. Stand-up paddleboarding, or SUP boarding, is the newest water sport to hit our shores, and it won't take you long to master the basics. Tall, small, weak or strong, anybody can do it. Give your body a complete workout, and give your mind some time out from the stress and pressure of your everyday life. Acquire the basics in just a 1-hour introductory session.
Speaker 5.
Why not learn to sand yacht this year? Imagine the wind in your hair,
travelling at up to 100 miles an hour along the shore. Contrary to popular belief, sand yachting needn't be complicated or expensive. It won't take you very long to master the basics so that you can swiftly enjoy the very real pleasures of this new and exciting sport. Sign up for one of our Come and Try sessions at only £16.50 an hour.
Unit 2, Lesson 2A, Exercise 6. Speaker 1.
I have a very relaxed attitude to money. Too relaxed, probably. I've never managed to save anything. I find money burns a hole in my pocket. If I have some, I tend to spend it on books, magazines, music, and when it's gone, it's gone. When I do have money, I'm quite generous with it and pay for my friends if they're a bit hard up. So I find that when I'm broke, there's more often than not a friend that can pay for me. I'd prefer to be like that with money than be stingy. Although I know I should save some, I really don't like people who are mean with their money. Friends are much more valuable than cash.
Speaker 2.
My family is not affluent at all, and I was always taught to be careful with money. I've been brought up to know the value of everything and not to waste anything. My parents work hard, but couldn't afford much for us when we were growing up, and don't give us much of an allowance. Me and my brothers always found ways to earn a bit of money. If we particularly wanted something, we saved up hard for it. Now I work twice a week in my local supermarket, on Thursday evenings and all day Saturday. I've got my own bank account and I write down my weekly income and expenses so that I can keep track of my finances. I'm always careful to keep some back for a rainy day.
Speaker 3.
What can I say? I love shopping. I love buying new clothes and shoes, music and gadgets, but I never buy anything that's really extortionate because I also hate getting into debt. So I take good care of my finances and I try to budget wisely. I have 2 part-time jobs in a newsagent's and a garden centre, but I work hard at my schoolwork too, honestly. I have a bank account which I pay into weekly. I make sure that I keep most of my money in there, and once a month I go shopping, but I don't use a debit card because I think that might be dangerous. It's too easy to spend money without thinking. I always use cash.
Speaker 4.
I wish I was more interested in money, but I'm not, and never have been. If my mum gives me some pocket money, I tend to lose it. I'm not really careless with money. I suppose it's important, and one day I'll have to get a job and earn a living. But I'm just not bothered about having pricey possessions. I suppose I'd rather be comfortably off than severely hard up. But actually, I don't think I'll need much money in the future. I like making things and buying second-hand stuff. Things don't have to be expensive to be worth having. I think that other things are much more precious. Things like friendship, I mean, which is priceless.
Lesson 2B, Exercise 6. 1.
He would go out rather than do his homework.
2.
If he was short of cash, he would always borrow money from me.
3.
She would leave her shoes in the middle of the hall where people would trip over them.
4.
Sometimes Pete would eat a whole packet of biscuits in an evening.
5.
She would never offer to help with the housework.
6.
Fran denies breaking the DVD player.
Well, she would, wouldn't she?
Unit 2, Lesson 2C, Exercise 2.
Get out of my house. In July, property developer Jim Locke bought a large, detached 10-bedroom building in Bath with plans to convert it into 3 luxury flats. He's planning to sell the flats for £400,000 and expects to make a profit of about £250,000. However, before building work started, a group of 20 squatters moved into the house and claimed they were looking after the empty property. They climbed into the building, which used to be a nursing home, through a downstairs window that had been left open. The group, which includes 3 small children, is sleeping on the floor in sleeping bags. There's no heating or furniture. Mr. Locke went to the police, but they said they could do nothing. Squatting in commercial properties isn't a criminal offence in England as long as squatters don't actually break into an empty property or cause criminal damage. I was astonished that the police wouldn't evict them, said an exasperated Mr. Locke. They're just a bunch of lazy hippies. I'll have to go to court to get them evicted. It'll cost me thousands in legal fees.
Lesson 2C. Exercises 3 and 4.
I'm at the house that Mr. Locke bought and which has been occupied by squatters. I'm going to see if they will talk to me. Hello? Hello? Is anyone there?
Who is it?
My name's James Connolly. I'm from Radio Bath, the local radio station. I was wondering if someone would give me an interview.
Hi. This isn't on live radio, is it?
No, it isn't. But I'm recording it. Is that okay?
Sure. What would you like to know?
Why are you squatting in this house? It isn't yours, is it?
No, of course it isn't. But it was empty. We all need a place to live.
Why don't you just rent a flat or house?
You're joking? The rents around here are extortionate. I wouldn't have enough to live on after paying the rent.
Don't you think it's wrong to live in a property which doesn't belong to you without getting permission?
No, not if it's empty. There's a shortage of houses in this country, but there are loads of empty properties, and most of them are owned by greedy property developers who've bought them as an investment and are leaving them empty for years and then selling them when property prices go up.
What's wrong with buying and selling property to make a profit?
What's wrong with that? There are thousands of people who have become homeless. People with mental health and addiction problems who need somewhere to live. Everybody's got the right to a roof over their head.
Why did you choose this place?
We noticed that it looked empty. We came back a few times to make sure. Then one of us climbed in through a window that had been left open. Nobody is using the place, so we decided to take possession of it.
What do you say to people who say that squatters are just lazy and want everything for free and contribute nothing to society?
That's rubbish. We're just normal people. We live like normal people. We contribute to society, yeah? We're not damaging stuff. And in fact, we've done a lot of maintenance and even made some improvements. We've tidied the garden and repaired the roof. It's the people like Mr. Locke who own empty properties that are antisocial. They're only motivated by greed. They're the ones that contribute nothing to society.
Mr. Locke has applied for a court order. What will you do when you get evicted?
We'll leave. We'll find another empty property and squat there. My baby's woken up. I have to go now.
OK. Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Lesson 2D. Exercise 3. Secret Millionaire. Secret Millionaire is a reality TV show with a difference. The participants come on the programme to possibly give away thousands of pounds. In the programme, millionaires go undercover to deprived areas of Britain, where they volunteer in the local community. For a fortnight, they give up their affluent lifestyle and live with little money in substandard accommodation. Their experiences often prompt them to hand over life-changing sums of money to deserving individuals and institutions. At the end, they reveal who they actually are. There have been 8 series of the programme in the UK so far, with millions of pounds being given away to good causes. While watching the programmes, it's sometimes hard to tell who is benefiting most from the relationship. All of the people involved have talked about how it has changed their lives. But interestingly, it seemed that it was the millionaires who found their experiences the most rewarding. Some discovered that there are more important things in life than making money, and forged lasting relationships with the people they met. A.
Hilary Devey, who, as a single mother, risked everything to start up a now hugely successful transport company, lives on her own in her enormous mansion. She returned incognito to the place she grew up in, and one of the projects she got involved in was a local community support centre which was in danger of closing. The centre provides marriage counselling, support for single parents and homeless people, and so on. She funded the centre and provided more facilities for it. Hilary is still a regular visitor to the centre and feels she now has friends who value her for the person she is, not her money.
B.
Nick Leslaw is one of Britain's wealthiest property tycoons and lives in luxury with his family in London. He went to Glasgow and worked in a poor area with severely disabled people. He was astonished at how friendly and kind everyone was, even though they didn't know anything about him. Although he has always donated money to various charities, he found it immensely rewarding to get involved directly for once. He said he felt privileged to have met some of society's genuine heroes, people who work tirelessly to help others.
C.
Kavita Oberoi is a 38-year-old IT millionaire whose sole interest in life, apart from her family, was making money. Her views completely changed when she went to a centre for disadvantaged girls in Manchester. She used to believe that people were poor because they didn't try to improve their lives. When she got involved with the girls' centre, she realised that people often need help and support to do their best. She realised that her own mother had sacrificed a lot so that Kavita could have a good education. Kavita became a director of the group and is helping it to go national to support more young women.
D.
James Benamor, a tough financial dealer now worth £77 million, used to have a drug problem himself. He waved goodbye to his wife and children and went to a crime-ridden area of Manchester. He worked in a centre for teenagers who were excluded from mainstream education and found that they had no confidence in themselves nor any belief that any effort they made would make any difference. James donated money to the centre so that children who worked hard earned rewards in the form of trips and outings. He also offered some teenagers a month's work experience at his company. He was delighted to see how their attitudes changed and has set up the scheme permanently.
Lesson 2F, Exercise 3.
He's clearly astonished. Perhaps he's so surprised because he's received something he's always wanted, but didn't expect to get. Another possibility is that it's an incredibly expensive present. Or it could be that it's a complete surprise and he's just delighted to be given whatever it is.
Vocabulary Builder 2.3, Exercise 3. 1.
Are you hungry?
Hungry? I'm starving.
2.
Is the dining table clean?
3.
Was the bus crowded?
4.
I think Joanna is beautiful.
5.
That was a silly thing to say.
6.
I thought that programme was quite funny.
7.
Are you tired?
8.
Was your dad angry with you?
Lesson 2F, Exercises 5 and 7. Tell me about the last time you gave someone a present.
The last time I gave someone a present. Let me see. That was my sister's birthday. I used to buy her makeup or jewellery, but she'd been borrowing my hoodie all the time, so I thought I'd get her one of her own. I found a great one on a website. but stupidly I ordered the wrong size. I must have clicked the wrong button. I'd asked for the hoodie to be gift-wrapped and sent directly to her, not to me. So I obviously didn't realise my mistake until she opened the present on her birthday. It was a size 18 instead of a size 8. You should have seen her face when she unwrapped it. Luckily, she saw the funny side. I can laugh about it now, but to be honest, I didn't think it was very funny at the time. Fortunately, I was able to return it, and they exchanged it free of charge.
Skills Roundup 1 to 2. Exercises 4 and 5.
Hi. Can I ask you, does this newspaper have property adverts?
Are you planning to buy somewhere?
No, I need to rent a flat.
Oh, right. Well, that paper has a few adverts at the back. But you know there's a weekly property newspaper as well. It comes out on Fridays.
I didn't know that.
Come back in tomorrow. I'll save you a copy.
Thanks.
Oh, and while you're here, have a look in our window. We've got a few adverts there for flats to rent.
Thanks, I will. Bye.
Hi. Looking for somewhere to live?
Yes, I'm looking for a flat to rent. Why, do you know of one?
Well, not exactly, but I might be able to help you out.
Really, that's great.
When did you arrive in London?
About a month ago. I've been staying with friends.
You're not originally from the UK, are you?
No, I'm from Poland.
Your English is fantastic.
Thanks. I've been learning it for 10 years, so it should be okay.
Anyway, look, I'm sharing a place with a few friends. It's massive, 7 or 8 bedrooms.
Sounds great.
Yes. And the best thing is, we don't have to pay a penny for it.
Ah, you're squashing.
It's squatting, not squashing, actually. And yes, we're squatting. Well, you know, it's such a waste. Having all these big empty houses. It's criminal, really, when you think about all the homeless people there are in London.
I see your point.
That's why I do it, really. It's a kind of protest. I used to pay over £1,000 a month for a tiny room in a flat. I worked 7 days a week to pay for it, and every day I would walk past 10 empty houses. Well, I mean, somebody has to challenge the way the capitalist society works. Somebody has to stand up and say, no, this is unfair for one person to own a huge property they don't even need when other people are homeless or paying rent they can't afford.
Yes, it does seem unfair.
So, feel free to drop round and visit us. Have a look. If you like it, you're welcome to move in. It's the big house on the corner of William Street and Western Avenue.
Right. Thanks. My name's Stefan, by the way.
I'm Spiky.
Spiky?
Well, that's what everybody calls me now, anyway. So, do you think you'll come round and see us?
Well, it's really kind of you. But I'm not really looking for a house share. Or a squat. If I could find a place on my own, I'd prefer that.
In this part of London? But rents are extortionate here. A complete rip-off. Only bankers and people like that can afford to rent a place on their own.
Well, actually, I do work in the financial sector.
Oh, I see. Well, you're still welcome to drop round, I suppose. I mean, we don't hate all bankers.
Thanks. Well, see you around?
Yeah. Bye.
Unit 3, Lesson 3A, Exercises 3 and 7. Brianna.
My mum's life isn't easy at all. She has to cope with a lot. She works long hours in the hospital. She's a nurse. And she also does most of the cooking and housework. But she manages it all somehow without complaining. My brother and I argue all the time about whose turn it is to do the washing up or empty the bins. My mum always says she'd rather do it herself than listen to us arguing. I feel bad about it, really, because I think she's amazing.
Ryan.
I'm quite an easygoing person, I think. I mean, I don't get annoyed very easily, but I'm always disagreeing with my dad about nearly everything. We have a completely different way of looking at the world, even though on the surface we like the same things, like football and films. If we weren't in the same family, we'd probably never speak to each other. But because we live in the same house, we have to. I always complain to my mum about him, and she always listens. She's a good listener, unlike my dad.
Sophia.
My granddad lives with us. He's lived with us for about 10 years, so I know him really well, and I've learned a lot from him. He's had an amazing life, and I love listening to his stories about his early life. In many ways, I'd say he's my best friend, at least within my family, even though we aren't that alike. You see, I don't always find it easy to talk to my parents. My dad's always too busy, and my mum's always telling me to do my schoolwork. She says it 10 times every evening. It drives me mad. That's why I'd rather be with Grandad. He's cool.
Isaac.
My cousin Noah is the top of his class in just about every subject. I really wish I was like that. I mean, I work hard and everything, but I still don't do that well. I'm average, I suppose. But Noah's a genius, and he doesn't mind admitting it. He's always telling me about his incredible exam results, that he got 95% in this exam or 98% in that exam. I just smile and try to look pleased for him. But really, I wish he didn't go on about it so much. And in some ways, I wish I was more like him.
Ella.
I've got a twin brother called Sam. Because we're twins, people assume that we're going to be similar. You know, have the same hobbies and interests, that kind of thing. But we haven't. In fact, we couldn't be more different. He's into football. I hate it. I like books. He never reads. His favourite subjects at school are all the sciences, physics, chemistry. But I like history, music, English, languages. It's odd, isn't it? The only thing we share is a birthday. Apart from that, everything about us is different, even our hair. I'm the only one in the family with black hair. Dad's always teasing me about it. He says maybe the hospital gave them the wrong baby to take home. But that can't be true, because I really look like Mum.
David.
My dad is really close to his sister Kate. We visit her quite often, which is fine because she's really nice. Her husband, my uncle, is nice too, but he makes me a bit nervous because he's always playing tricks on me. Like once, when I was washing up in the kitchen, he put a plastic eyeball in the sink. It really gave me a shock when I picked it up. I know he's just trying to be funny, but I don't really like that kind of joke. Anyway, I don't complain about it. My aunt says it's good that I'm so patient, but still, I wish he'd stop doing it. I can't relax when he's around.
Lesson 3A. Exercises 8 and 9. Speaker 1.
Hey, well done. You played really well. I didn't realise you were so good at tennis. It wasn't an easy match, but you kept going and showed a lot of determination. I was really impressed.
Speaker 2.
Hey, guess what I got in my maths test? Come on, guess. No? OK. I got 98%. Isn't that great? I'm sure it was top of the class. I mean, I can't imagine anyone getting more than 98%, can you? I knew I'd done well, but I didn't realise I'd done that well. 98%! So, anyway, what did you get?
Speaker 3.
Look, if you've got Mr. Edwards for history, be careful. He gets angry really easily. You know, if you talk in class or don't pay attention, and you don't want to see Mr. Edwards when he's angry, it isn't nice, so be careful.
Speaker 4.
Do you want to know who my favourite singer is? Don't tell anyone, will you? OK, it's Justin Bieber. Yeah, I know, but I just really like his voice. And the songs are great too. I think I like Baby the best. What a great song!
Speaker 5.
I hear you got a birthday present from Jake. A book of poems, wasn't it? How romantic! I didn't know he felt that way about you. What do you mean he's just a friend? Oh, come on. Tell the truth now.
Speaker 6.
I can't believe you borrowed my bike without asking. I opened the garage to get it and it wasn't there. I needed it. Why didn't you tell me you were taking it? It's my bike. And that's the second time this week that you've taken it without asking. It's really unfair. You should say sorry.
Lesson 3B. Exercise 1.
Excuse me, I'm doing a survey about families. I wonder whether you could spare a moment?
OK, fine.
Thank you. First, I need a few details about you. Could you tell me how old you are?
I'm 20.
Can I ask what you do?
I'm a web designer.
Would you mind telling me who you work for?
I'm self-employed. I work at home.
Great. So, question 1. What do you argue about most in your family?
Whose turn it is to use the car.
OK. Question 2. Who cooks most of the meals in your home?
We don't have family meals. We help ourselves.
And finally, question 3. Who do you get on with best in your family?
My sister, definitely. We've got a lot in common.
That's all. Thanks very much for your help.
No problem. I wonder if I can ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I'd like to know if you're free this evening.
Lesson 3C. Exercise 3.
Hello, and welcome to Family Matters. And today we'll be discussing ageing and the elderly. With me in the studio is Professor Terence Clark from the University of London. Professor Clark, how would you sum up people's attitude to old age?
Well, nobody really likes the idea of getting old. But, as Woody Allen remarked, getting old is better than the alternative. And we'd better get used to it, because more and more of us are living longer and longer. Here in the UK, we've got more people who are over 65 than under 16. It's the first time in history that this has happened.
So, how long can most of us expect to live? Is it possible to say?
Life expectancy here in the UK is now 78 for men and 82 for women.
And what did it used to be?
Well, way back in classical times, the Romans and Greeks, the average life expectancy was 28. And in fact, it was similar in many other civilizations throughout history, right up until the modern age.
That's amazing! 28! So when you reached 14, you'd already lived 50% of your life?
No, actually, that's not right.
But you said 28.
Yes, that's the average life expectancy. But not many people actually died at that age. The majority actually died before the age of 4. If you were lucky enough to reach the age of 14, if you survived all those childhood illnesses, you had quite a good chance of a long life. You might even live to be 60. But 70 was unusual. This was true for most of human history, right up until the 20th century. Then life expectancy began to increase sharply. Only 4 decades ago, it was only 69 for men and 75 for women. Today, living to 90 isn't unusual. That's why most governments are trying to raise the retirement age. For example, in the UK, it's due to go up to 68 by 2027.
So how do you explain this rise in life expectancy?
It's mainly down to medical science and healthcare. Also, we're more conscious of trying to stay healthy these days, eating healthier food, taking regular exercise. People didn't worry about those things so much in the past because, quite frankly, they didn't expect to live so long.
Lesson 3C. Exercise 4.
Hello, and welcome to Family Matters. And today we'll be discussing ageing and the elderly. With me in the studio is Professor Terence Clark from the University of London. Professor Clark, how would you sum up people's attitude to old age?
Well, nobody really likes the idea of getting old. But, as Woody Allen remarked, getting old is better than the alternative. And we'd better get used to it, because more and more of us are living longer and longer. Here in the UK, we've got more people who are over 65 than under 16. It's the first time in history that this has happened.
So, how long can most of us expect to live? Is it possible to say?
Life expectancy here in the UK is now 78 for men and 82 for women.
And what did it used to be?
Well, way back in classical times, the Romans and Greeks, the average life expectancy was 28. And in fact, it was similar in many other civilizations throughout history, right up until the modern age.
That's amazing! 28! So when you reached 14, you'd already lived 50% of your life?
No, actually, that's not right.
But you said 28.
Yes, that's the average life expectancy. But not many people actually died at that age. The majority actually died before the age of 4. If you were lucky enough to reach the age of 14, if you survived all those childhood illnesses, you had quite a good chance of a long life. You might even live to be 60. But 70 was unusual. This was true for most of human history, right up until the 20th century. Then life expectancy began to increase sharply. Only 4 decades ago, it was only 69 for men and 75 for women. Today, living to 90 isn't unusual. That's why most governments are trying to raise the retirement age. For example, in the UK, it's due to go up to 68 by 2027.
So how do you explain this rise in life expectancy?
It's mainly down to medical science and healthcare. Also, we're more conscious of trying to stay healthy these days, eating healthier food, taking regular exercise. People didn't worry about those things so much in the past because, quite frankly, they didn't expect to live so long.
I suppose the idea of getting old is less frightening if you think you're going to stay healthy.
Yes, it is. Maybe you heard about the British man who recently set several athletics records at the age of 100.
That's amazing. Can you imagine a time in the future when the parks are full of 100-year-old joggers trying to keep fit?
Well, personally, I think it's very unlikely. The human body doesn't seem to be designed to live that long, although there are exceptions. But certainly, I think we'll see more people in their 80s leading healthy and active lives.
So it isn't time for me to give up exercise yet, at the age of 56?
No, certainly not.
Although perhaps I should lose some weight before I start jogging.
Well, a few kilos, yes.
So, does this increase in life expectancy cause any problems?
Yes, it does. Firstly, there's an economic problem. Governments can't afford to pay everyone the state pension if they're going to live for 20 or 30 years after retiring. Then there's also the problem of how we, as a society, take care of all these elderly people. Many countries are having to face this problem right now.
And how do we compare with other countries and societies? Are we more or less the same in the way we treat the elderly?
No, not at all. There are very significant differences between cultures.
Can you give us a couple of examples?
Yes. Well, in many societies, elderly people always live with their families. In fact, the families think of it as an honour to have their elderly relatives in their home. In Britain and North America, it's more usual for elderly people to live in nursing homes if they can't look after themselves. And at the other extreme, there are traditional nomadic tribes who simply abandon their elderly people because there's no way of looking after them.
So some cultures treat their elderly people worse than we do?
Yes, but not many. And interestingly, some societies who in the past took good care of their elderly relatives are becoming more like us. Places like China and India, particularly in the big modern cities. Younger people in those places want to live their lives and be independent. They don't want to look after an ageing grandparent.
Yes, I see. Fascinating stuff. But I'm afraid we've run out of time. Professor Clark from the University of London, thank you for coming into the studio.
Lesson 3D. Exercise 6.
How to be a good parent. A teenager's guide. 16-year-old Ellie, who lives with her parents, Louise, 38, and Peter, 43, has written a book to tell us what parents of teenagers are doing wrong.
All adults think teenagers are a nightmare. According to them, we're moody, argumentative, rude and disruptive. But have any adults ever stopped to think that perhaps they are responsible for the unpredictable and confusing way we behave? Take me, for instance. I may be a teenage nightmare, but this is all to do with my parents, not me. With my mother, I stamp my feet, storm out of shops in the middle of arguments, and moan until I get my own way. Just last week, for example, I persuaded Mum to buy me a pair of shoes that she had said I couldn't have. But my father, on the other hand, turns me into a shining example of teenage perfection. I do as he asks, I don't answer back, and I happily accept that no means no. My parents have very different parenting styles. While my dad brings out the best in me by being calm and reasonable and treating me like an adult, my mum, like so many other parents of teenagers, inadvertently makes me want to rebel by being combative and speaking to me as though I'm still a child. Last summer, after yet another row in a shop with my mother, I decided to start writing down the way I felt about things. A few more rows later, and I'd written more than 10,000 words of advice for parents. In December, having contacted various publishers, I signed a book deal. My parenting book, How Teenagers Think, is going to be published next year. The first of its type actually written by a teenager. Much of my book is based on my own experiences, but I've also interviewed my friends about their parents. Surprisingly, we all share similar views on what our parents are doing wrong. And it usually comes down to the fact that our parents care too much about us and don't want to let us grow up. For example, Mum drove me crazy a few weeks ago when she kept worrying I'd broken my neck after I fell off my bike. Yes, my neck hurt, but I'd been to the doctor and he'd told me I was fine. So why did she want to take me to hospital? Instead of fussing around their teenagers like we're small children, parents could be using our desire to feel grown up to their advantage. If we're behaving badly, why not tell us straight out that we don't deserve to be treated like an adult? Then we'll try to earn your respect. And why not reward us when we do behave maturely? Recently, I wanted to take a train to Portsmouth to see a friend, a journey I'd done with Mum before. Dad was fine with the idea of me going alone, but it took weeks of arguments before Mum agreed. Why was it such a big deal? Parents need to learn to trust teenagers. And when parents are worried about us, there is no point becoming angry. That just makes things worse. A few months ago, Mum lost her temper when I told my parents I'd been receiving emails from a stranger I'd met in a chat room. She instantly banned me from using the internet, and we ended up having a huge row. But I'm not stupid. Most teenagers know talking to strangers online is not a good idea, so I'd told them what was happening. I don't want to get abducted, just as much as they don't want me to. So why be angry with me, Mum? It makes me not want to confide in you. Surely it's better for me to feel you won't be angry so I can talk to you. Many of my friends feel the same way. They end up not telling their parents what they're up to because they'll be cross. Everyone I interviewed for my book loved the idea of being really close to their parents. Despite the way we behave, we all want close relationships with our parents. We also all know deep down that our parents usually do know best. But part of being a teenager is feeling free to take steps down new paths and learning from our own mistakes. Our parents have to unwrap the cotton wool they place around us and let us get on with what is just a natural phase of life.
Vocabulary Builder 3.2 Exercise 1 1.
You're welcome to visit us on Saturday, but I'm afraid we can't put you up.
2.
He doesn't play as well as he can because he doesn't want to show the rest of the team up.
3,
They often have terrible rows because they both refuse to back down.
4,
When you talk to my grandfather about his health problems, he always plays them up.
5,
At the time, his marriage was a huge scandal that took years to die down.
6,
It's a comfortable hotel, but they need to do it up.
7,
As the teacher started to wind down the lesson, the students put their books away.
8,
He only took up skiing after he'd retired.
9,
There was an accident on the motorway which held us up for 2 hours.
10,
He turned down a job in a bank because he wanted to be a dancer.
Lesson 3E, Exercise 2.
Although teenagers in the UK generally understand about 40,000 different words, the number of words they actually use is far smaller than you might think, sometimes only 800 words. An inability to distinguish between formal and informal language is almost as worrying. Ever since the 1950s, speaking correct English has been nowhere near as important for teenagers as sounding cool, but experts are worried that today's teenagers are even worse at talking in formal situations than previous generations were. The language that teenagers use is nothing like as varied as you would imagine, with the 20 commonest words representing about a third of all words spoken. And if you look at younger age groups, the situation is just as worrying. Children are developing speech problems more and more frequently. Children watch a lot of TV, as do adults. This creates background noise, and the noisier their surroundings, the harder it is for babies to hear conversations around them.
Lesson 3F, Exercises 2 and 4.
So, I'm coming to visit you soon?
Yes. Your grandfather is coming too, isn't he?
That's right.
Would you like to come and stay with us?
Thanks, but I don't think that's a great idea. You haven't got a big flat, have you?
No, but you can sleep in my room. I've got a sleeping bag.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think my granddad would enjoy sleeping on the floor. He's 75.
Alternatively, we could book a hotel. There's a good one in the town centre. It's called the Bear Hotel. It's about 10 kilometres from our house.
Is there anywhere closer?
No, not really.
I don't know.
I really think you should stay there. It's far better than any of the other hotels, and it isn't too expensive.
Does it have a restaurant?
Yes, it does. It serves Thai food. It's a really good place to eat.
Ah, Thai food is spicy, isn't it? My grandfather hates Thai food. Are there any other restaurants?
Yes, there's an Italian restaurant near the hotel. I'm sure your grandfather will like that. Everybody likes Italian food, don't they?
Yes, I guess. Is it reasonable?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by reasonable.
Reasonable means not expensive. Is the Italian restaurant reasonable?
Yes, it is. It's a little more expensive than the Thai one, but the food is nicer.
Good. It sounds perfect then. The other thing we should do is arrange a few day trips during our stay.
Well, there's a castle.
I'm not that interested in castles.
And there's a fantastic wildlife centre. You really must go there.
That sounds more interesting.
There are lots of other places too.
I should look online, shouldn't I?
Yes, that's a good idea. Is there anything else you need to know about? Transport?
Yes, transport. How are we going to get around while we're there?
You could hire a car, couldn't you?
I'm not sure. My grandfather doesn't really like driving.
But taxis are expensive. And the big advantage of hiring a car is you're completely independent.
I suppose you're right. Where's the best place to hire a car?
Let's decide later, shall we? We could always look online.
OK, but can you book a room for us at the Bear Hotel, please?
Yes, of course.
Don't forget, will you?
I won't.
Lesson 3F, Exercises 5 and 6.
Your grandfather is coming too, isn't he?
You haven't got a big flat, have you? Thai food is spicy, isn't it?
Everybody likes Italian food, don't they?
I should look online, shouldn't I?
Let's decide later, shall we?
Don't forget, will you?
Get ready for your exam 3, exercise 2. Speaker A.
You can't beat spending the weekend in the countryside, somewhere really remote, away from the constant racket, bustle, dirt and smog of the city. Every so often I drag my rucksack down from the top of the wardrobe, fling a few things in it and set off hiking and camping overnight with a couple of friends. We get exhausted, muddy and laugh a lot. We can't get enough of the wide open spaces, the beauty and the sense of adventure.
Speaker B.
My brother and I are kart fanatics. We are completely obsessed with racing, so you'll find us at the track every weekend without fail. It's a totally awesome sport. It's our ambition to get into Formula 1. All those drivers started with karts. Our superhero of all time has got to be Ayrton Senna. We want to be as classy a driver as him. Right now, we're saving every penny for our own kart because we've got to get faster.
Speaker C.
My best weekends are with my mates, a screen and a console. We consider ourselves extreme gamers, and we're all pretty good. Every Friday after school is game time. We create competitions which can carry on into the night, or at least for as long as our parents let us. They keep nagging us about spending so much time on the computer. But what with school, sports and endless homework, it's not that long. They should chill a bit.
Speaker D.
It's dead easy to describe my ideal weekend. 2 words, city and shopping. We live in the back of Beyond, so I'm usually dying to get away to the big smoke and visit my auntie. I adore arriving in central London. My aunt usually plans a treat, like the theatre, but mostly we're shopaholics. We're both really into clothes and design, but I don't need to spend much. Just feeling the buzz and vibrancy of city life is cool.
Speaker E.
My ideal weekend? Doing absolutely nothing for a whole 48 hours. Sure, this sounds lazy, but I'm a student doctor slaving away on an 80-hour week, which is super stressy. My ideal weekend wouldn't start before noon, and the alarm clock would be in a drawer. I'd have a long bath, not a quick shower. Then I'd have friends round and watch back-to-back films on TV. As long as we ordered takeaways, there's no way I'd be shopping or cooking.
Unit 4, Lesson 4A, Exercise 2.
Most British teenagers aren't very interested in politics. Very few have taken part in a demonstration or written a letter of protest, let alone joined a political party. But with the advent of the internet, a new way of launching a campaign or influencing government policy has emerged: e-petitions. Any British citizen can start a petition on the British government website. If more than 100,000 people sign the petition, it could be debated in the House of Commons. Recent popular petitions have called for a referendum on British membership of the EU, or demanded action to tackle problems like drug addiction and homelessness. But could a petition ever lead the government to actually change the law? Or is it just a cynical way for the government to gauge public opinion, or, worse, to fool voters into thinking that the government is actually listening to them? Time will tell.
Lesson 4A, Exercises 4 and 5. 1.
I'm old enough to marry, have children, work, own a house, join the army, which could mean dying for my country. But I'm not old enough to vote. I think we need to reform the electoral system so that anyone over the age of 16 can vote in a general election. The government spends a lot of money on education, but school students have no say in how that money is spent. I think we should. Many teenagers have thought about things and have opinions on how politicians should tackle the important issues. People sometimes say we aren't responsible enough and wouldn't take it seriously. But a lot of young people get involved in single-issue politics, like animal rights and so on. And if you gave them the vote, they'd take the trouble to find out what the other, more general issues are.
2.
Imagine what it would be like if you couldn't vote at all. Many young people in the West can't imagine what that would be like. Being female, I think it's especially important to vote. It took a long time before women were allowed into politics, which, frankly, I think is shocking. And there are still countries in the world where women can't vote. So, if you want to change the world, you have to use your vote. Otherwise, we may lose our freedoms and end up living under a dictatorship. There are so many countries where you can't vote, where your opinion doesn't count. OK, so politicians here sometimes don't listen, but you have to appreciate the political system that we have. We should value our democracy and not take it for granted. And remember, democracy only works if people take part. When I'm 18 next year, I'll be first at the polling station.
3.
I just switch off when I hear politicians droning on the telly. I don't know who's left-wing or who's right-wing. I'm not even sure I know the name of the Prime Minister. And I probably wouldn't remember to vote, even if the government passed a law allowing me to at 16. I think a lot of teens just wouldn't bother to vote. They aren't interested in politics. They think it's boring and that it doesn't affect them. None of my friends have taken part in a demonstration or even signed a petition. And also, it seems that those people at school who are interested in politics just have the same political opinions as their parents. If they are going to get into politics and stand for public office, they need to think for themselves. Having said all that, maybe when I'm 18 and able to vote, I'll change my mind.
4.
It seems to me that whether people vote or not, things never change. All political parties seem interchangeable and say the same things. I don't think politicians pay any attention to what the general public think about government policy. They are far more interested in arguing amongst themselves. They just say what people want to hear when they want the public's votes in order to get elected. But when they're in government, they're not interested in public opinion anymore. When I get the vote, I hope someone different will come along with a new attitude and new approach to politics. I'm not sure I'll care if they're left-wing or right-wing, as long as I can believe that they mean what they say. My mum says that not all politicians are the same and that I should take an interest in politics. Perhaps she's right.
5.
I admire people who go into politics and put themselves up for election. They mostly do it because they want to change things and make things better. I don't think they're in it for the money or the fame. Having said that, I'm pretty fed up with politics in general. I think the main problem is the electoral system. We don't have proportional representation in this country, so the political party that wins isn't necessarily the one that gets the most votes in the general election. That's why I think a lot of people have become disillusioned with mainstream politics and get involved with single-issue politics, like climate change, gun control, things like that.
Lesson 4B, Exercise 1.
Hey, Sandy, move it. Hurry up. Grab a placard and some water. Chances are we'll be out all day.
OK, where are we off to?
The University Library. Thousands of students will be heading there right now. Hurry!
OK. Blimey, there are loads of us. People must be wondering what's going on.
That's the idea. Come on!
What's the plan then?
Well, at least 100 students are likely to occupy the library. The rest of us could march to the town hall. or it might be better to stay in the centre of town to protest there. Either way, people are bound to sit up and take notice.
No to student fees! No to student fees!
And the TV cameras should be here today as well. The government can't ignore us any longer. Come on! No to student fees! No to student fees!
Lesson 4C, Exercise 3.
Northern Ireland. When Ireland gained its independence in 1922, the north, where 2/3 of the population were Protestants, remained part of the UK. For decades after, the minority Catholic population in the north felt badly treated. They were less well off and were often excluded from public office. Most of them wanted an end to British rule in Northern Ireland. In the 1960s, some Protestants reacted violently to Catholic demands for equality and civil rights, and police used force to break up Catholic demonstrations. Rioting and civil unrest followed, and in 1969, the British Army was sent in to restore law and order. Catholic and Protestant paramilitary groups started planting bombs and murdering people, claiming that they were protecting their communities. One of these groups, the Provisional IRA, Irish Republican Army, wanted Ireland to be united again and started killing British soldiers. The British government acknowledged the Catholics' grievances, but insisted that Northern Ireland would remain part of the UK as long as that was what the majority of its people wanted. The British government was unable to stop the violence, which lasted for nearly 30 years. This period saw a number of failed peace initiatives, an attempt by the IRA in 1985 to murder Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and the deaths of over 3,500 people, including 1,100 British soldiers. But people in both communities were tiring of the spiral of violence, and in 1998, the IRA agreed to give up its armed struggle and seek to achieve its goal by peaceful means. Northern Ireland is still part of the UK, but now has its own government, made up of Catholics and Protestants.
Lesson 4C, Exercises 6 and 7. William.
I remember going on Protestant marches when I was a little kid and watching the bands and waving a Union Jack. It was a lot of fun. My granddad, who died a few years back, was a police officer, and so was my uncle. But he was killed back in the 80s by Republican terrorists. That was a terrible time for my mum and dad. My parents think that Northern Ireland should remain part of the UK, and I'm of the same opinion. But, you know, as I grew up, I realised that the labels we give each other do a lot of harm. I can see now that dividing people into those who want Ireland to be united and those who want Northern Ireland to stay part of the UK isn't helpful. It divides the two communities and stops us from getting to know and understand each other. I've decided that I don't want to be part of religious intolerance anymore. We need to break out of the mindset where we view people from the other community as the enemy. It isn't easy though, and it'll take a long time.
Niamh.
I'm glad that the IRA have given up their weapons, because you get nowhere by shooting and bombing. But I come from a nationalist family, and I'd like to see a united Ireland. The island of Ireland should never have been divided into two parts. But I think we should try to achieve reunification by peaceful means. The other thing that really needs to change in Northern Ireland is the education system. Because most Protestants and Catholics go to separate schools. They don't mix. About 9 out of 10 children in Northern Ireland go to faith schools. You can spend your entire childhood without having a conversation with someone from the other faith community. Until that changes, it'll be very difficult to heal the divisions in our society. I'm going to send my kids to an integrated school, one that both Protestants and Catholics go to, for sure.